Crossing genres is a concept that has been recurring for us since this series started. Most of our writers write in poetry, short fiction, or longer form fiction. And we might find that in any path that a writer chooses, that they are very likely informed by that genre itself, as well as other forms of writing and other forms of art. A visual artist, for example, might love fiction. A fiction writer might adore poetry and the music that's present there. And a poet might love being sustained in the worlds that a fiction writer is able to create. I'm Yashika Graham, welcoming you to another episode of the Ackee Pod, Interviews with Writers. And this week we have yet another guest who navigates the world informed by various artistic genres. We're talking about Jamaican writer Humroy Whyte, who is a London-based poet, artist, visual and musical, educator and actor. He has also been a broadcaster and has appeared in theatre productions directed by the great Dennis Scott and others. For the greater part of Humroy's professional career, he has been an educator in drama, and his very first collection of, you guessed it, cross-genre work was published in 2022, titled Journey to Discover, and that features visual art, poetry, and play script. I want us to pay attention to that title, Journey to Discover, as it's journey not to discovery, but to discover, to find, and to suggest that discovery is not necessarily found. One is not, or rather, Whyte does not suggest he has pinned down something, but rather he suggests that the journey is the discovery. And I think that is what really comes out in terms of how he navigates the world, tapping into the various art forms and realizing that each of those are means of feeding him and feeding his work and informing his navigation of the world. I'm Yashika Graham, welcoming you to the Ackee Pod, Interviews with Writers.
I am Humroy Whyte, poet, musician, actor, playwright, and I still dabble in broadcasting.
So, Humroy, talk to me about the role that music has played in your life over time.
The role that music has played in my life over time started from birth, really. At times I think I can still hear the sound in my mother's womb, or the sounds. I do tend to remember sounds from I was coming into being at 3 years old. And so nature is my teacher. And the mysterious, mystical sounds of nature, so melodious, carries with it music. And that was where it started. That was a role at the beginning that music played, natural. It's like nowadays you take a piece of Bach or Beethoven and you add a little touch of gospel to it, then the music is the same because the notations are, but the variations of genre, you do it in soul. I'm thinking of doing, Mikey Smith did Ode to Westminster upon Westminster Bridge, and I don't know if I'll be able to do a reggae in classic jazz or any other genre for that matter. So the music grew with me. And my uncle brought a radio at the time in the 60s, and so we used to listen to RJR. I used to listen it for the music because I didn't understand what the news was all about at that early age. But then again, before I started listening to the radio, I went to church very early, and the hymns that were being sung rang through. So I went home at about 6 or 7 and made a guitar out of wood with sardine pan to echo the chingy chingy pranga pranga pranga, and yes, and some line string, you know, fishing line string, and copper nail at the top. Oh God, that was a real sound of natural expression, a kind of sacred energy, if you like, because I was just enjoying nature, enjoying the sounds that nature brings. And then I started going to the fields with my grandfather to feed the cows along the road, you know, they eat and so on. And along the way from my community, my district, to where we took the cows, took them from Spring Village to Bushy Park, jukeboxes, I may tell you, when the man them punched on tune in a jukebox, I could hear it while I was in the fields. Granted, you know, those jukeboxes were in little bars with a little grocery shop next with a glass case and a shed pan. So. And yeah, mostly on a Friday when the sugar workers and banana plantation on Bakra's estate got their pay. So yeah, music continued to influence my life. One of the first tracks I heard, I remember, on a jukebox was Alton Ellis. The man wail out on something, it's still ringing at me. It's from that basic beginning. And then of course the rivers used to flow through, the birds, everything combined, until I realized the power of music in relation to healing. Sounds translated. And so I realized that my name, a musical one, actually could mean something, because it is hum. Every time I say hum, me hear this now ringing in my ears all about. I mean, I said, tan is a musical note in the orchestra of life. So that role became a driving force, the music that it played leading up to that point. And my mother told me when I asked her why they named me this name, she said, oh, I went to your father and I said, what shall we name him? And he said, and I said, that's nice, Humroy. So the music rings through and through, and I tend often to see the expression of God as a musician, really, in how sounds and words, spoken words, written words combine to give that fullness. Yeah. To be able, at points in our lives, to have a creativity reference, such as music, art, writing poetry or novels, you know, singing, dancing, to allay some of the tensions. That's the pivotal role music has played in my life. Now if you listen for long, you know, sometimes you get up and just one tune feed you, as the spirit calls, and that it sound powerful.
So let's go from music to poetry and the role that music might play, because you talk often about the interconnectedness between the various genres that you work in.
Yes.
So how does music and your knowledge of music and your connection to music function when you take it to the page as poet?
Wow, enough question that. Yeah, music translates in the poetry as, to me, rhythm. The same expressions of the genres of music. I could read a poem in classical vein with classical music, but to read it with a reggae beat, and then the variations of the rhythms. And that's what I try to do with each word. you know, I said the poet, and then a rhythm in my head, and then the rhythm of time I say the poet, yeah, the poet, and those registers of the music combined with the words bring about a melody and a harmony of sounds spoken, you know, with natural rhythms, but like I rhythm that, and a music and a sound, you know. But if we don't have an instrument or whatever, and so we go. So we are a natural instruments of creativity in this great orchestra of life. And so that is how the music and the poetry are connected in terms of rhythm patterns. And I dare say I'm discovering some new rhythms, because the poems come in such a way that it's them a dictate, you know. You ever find one poem I tell you that's what they want to read, go till yes, but that's how the messenger comes. Yashika, what was the other question?
I think you answered it. It was one question really,
yes,
to say how your knowledge of music functions when you go to the page and say, all right, I'm writing a poem now. What am I hearing?
Yes.
Sounds important.
Yes.
That kind of thing.
Yes. Yes. Because the poetry started when my grandmother told me the story of Jesus writing on the ground with him finger. And when Mia tried to read, she said, no, the good things in there, something might joke you. See a piece of stick here. And I put on some writing in her yard on the dirt. And the next day she said, sweep it up and write again. And that was, I didn't go to school, I was preschool. So nature and my grandparents were my first teachers.
Wow.
And then he'd write, and she said, where you write? I don't know. She say it's spiritual tongues, you know. Me also send you go to school and you learn to read. So unbalance the sounds and the words begun to juxtapose. And I went to church after I made the guitar. God, one time they hide it and said too much noise at the head. And that's where teacher Maureen Graham, who was the organist at the Shiloh Baptist in Spring Village, came to my grandmother and said, Miss Iris, me go and carry him go to church because I see man that breadfruit tree. Every day I sing and I write and I compose. And she took me to church at 7 and taught me the piano.
Wow.
And I extended, when I further went to Calabar, I went to study music with Ms. Della Penna, you know, Lindy Della Penna's grandaunt, yeah, Miss Dell, we affectionately call her in Spanish Town. So that's when I was introduced to Bach, Beethoven, Haydn, Liszt, and all of that. And she came round one day after going into her cottage to the music room outside and says, right, that's it. I know what you want to play. You want to play like Count Basie, don't you? Let's go. And I put on some rhythm. And she said, fine. $5 per session in that time. And then there was a brother of mine in spirit, Jerry, who came to Spring Village from town, and he came playing the guitar. And he taught me the guitar through primary years, and I taught him the piano.
So are those your two instruments now, or you play other
Oh, I love drums. I dabble in a bit of wind sometimes, depending on how I feel. Other strings as well, but percussion in general, and keyboards, yes.
And Ray.
Yes, of course. And the thing is, I'm happy I chose the guitar. I love the keyboards, but we can just walk with the guitar go anyway. Yes, and acoustically, you know.
Yeah.
It good.
Talk to me about you as performer. Because you see the work on the page, right? But then when you get to a stage, there's a kind of transformation or an expansion that happens. And it makes me think about you as Ackee actor.
Yeah.
So I'm now looking at you as both the poet performing and the actor on stage. So if you can take me back to Humroy the actor and tell me a little bit about that journey and how that has helped you to grow into another element of yourself.
Yes.
So Humroy as actor. Who is Humroy as the actor, and what has that experience been like?
Again, it has to do with childhood, that beginning, because we used to act out ring game in the yard. Everybody come, we play ring game, we play hopscotch, dolly house, all sorts of something. So it was built in that role play, imaginatively, as children acting as their parents, as they saw them. And then again, it was the organist, Miss Graham, who put on pageants, Christmas pageants at the church, and play people like When I Shepherd, or When I Wise Man in the Christmas pageantry, or the Innkeeper, and so on. And every year it was a different thing. And then I went to primary school, and from what they saw in church, they were always breaking up time, summer breakup, concert, and so I sang and I performed. But then it was when I came to Jamaica School of Drama, during which time I was a lay preacher. And I understood the stage as the pulpit, where that space, take an empty stage, and so it's an empty stage, but somebody walks across it and becomes theatre. I think it was Peter Brook. And drama school made me realize that to formalize the actor meant that one has to understand what I term as suspended reality. Because walking in the streets, I role play, because the way I'm talking to Yashika is not necessarily the way I talk to the man who just asks me if he may have anything can give him for your breakfast. So who is oneself really? But the compartmentalization helps to bring about something in what Salvador Dali did. I think the body, the woman with the shelves. And once you connect with each part. Yeah, you can't sneeze now. Chewed. So, a drama school, understanding suspended reality and what it meant, and I became interested in drama and education. I'm looking in that general vicinity where drama school is and drawing from that energy. And that's where Dennis Scott was at the time, you see. And many plays, many productions. And I had to stop because I realized that the roles were varied and too many, and I couldn't carry them with me. I had to shed the role play and find the spiritual sacred energy in aligning myself from I got baptized and the role I have to play in perhaps what is called the miracle plays, which is part of spreading the good news, the message through parables and miracles of Jesus Christ, who is my teacher, later on.
So, Dennis Scott
Yes.
is an important part of our culture.
Yes.
He's been called a Renaissance man, and he's been very important for you and your development
Yes.
as an actor and as a creative individual in general. Give me some insights into the role that he played in your development.
The role Dennis Scott played, who I will tell you 3 words that come to me when I hear the word Dennis Scott. Authentic, original, and one of a kind. When I first met Dennis Scott, I had met his poetry in other forums, through festival and all that, Uncle Time in particular. I'd also met the works of Mervyn Morris and all the other great poets, too numerous to mention. And I was granted a scholarship from the Social Development Commission, the SDC. Joe Ruggles, one of the foundation members from Greta Fowler and all them people there, you know, real Rasta man. And I did youth service, which was the Jamaica Youth Corps. Never mind me looking off, is the artistic element calling me, because this bicycle right here with the carrier marked True Juice is a real sample. And so I went for the audition after writing and performing in a play at the Ward Theatre called Karate Georgie. And so the audition at the School of Drama for the scholarship, Joe Ruglas took me up, and then on the day of the audition, and left me. Say Imaga St. Mary, Mr. Kuya, SDC, you see, social development. And then I went in for the audition, and they asked me to play a role, a scenario. And I just said, okay, I'm going to play a parent who has come to see a principal at school about her child. And a letter has gone home that the child is not behaving, so she come to find out what a gone because tree detention and get so far. The interlaying of the roles. Tom Cross, Anna Ford Smith, who was there, I think, Raul Gibbons, ran out of the Dennis Scott Theatre, now Dennis Scott Theatre, and ran to call Dennis to come and see something. Tom Cross came out, everybody, all the members of staff. By this time I was 2 weeks late. All the other graduates that I graduated with, Blacker, Bello, Eugene, Gene B's, all that, they gone 2 weeks, left me. I was late, but I managed to catch up. And when Dennis saw the audition, because they said play it again, I said no, I'll do something else. And Dennis said, you're starting tomorrow. And he shepherded me through that. I wrote poems. He was instrumental in introducing me to Mervyn, who wrote many of the reviews of the plays at the School of Drama. And I had my first set of works in Focus 83. So that was Dennis's influence. His influence was also that he had a humility about him when he directed or he was teaching, and he very much believed in the Dorothy Heathcote methodology that no child, no pupil, no student should be left behind. We have to be able to create opportunities for support and well-being of pupils who are in our care. So that was Dennis, and that was the acting he provided. We traveled to the Bahamas to do Playboy. I ran into Teddy Price the other day. He played that major role in Playboy. Imam Basil Darkins, may run into them. Basil Darkins is now teaching playwright. And Dennis, we spoke about Dennis, and Dennis has had a tremendous impact on all our lives. The multifaceted nature. He's an actor, he's a playwright, he's a dancer, and he's a poet. Yeah. And he's a musician, because Dennis listens to some music. You kind of wonder, geez, the instrumentation in those sounds, jazz to a depth, you know? Yeah. So that was acting, and that was Dennis.
Tell me about Dennis Scott as director, because you've talked about that a bit in other conversations. So yeah, take me into that. You're on a stage, you're being guided and directed by Dennis Scott.
Yeah.
What is that particular experience like?
The first time when I did, for example, the audition for Romeo and Juliet, which was a set of coins, the room was full of coins, and one had to navigate their way through the coins with certain obstacles to get to a point. And it was Hortensia Lindsay who I met up with yesterday. We're both in Jamaica at the same time, and we did Curtis Calls on the principal of the Edna Manley College. Hortensia Lindsay said, oh, we might take a glass of water. Cheers. Hortensia Lindsay said to me after the audition, you're working with Dennis Scott now. So, and I realized, yeah, up my game, self-actualize from Shiloh to them time to now, first plate, big role. And the way guided was to provide, you'd say, sessions with the actor or the actors in each scenes. And not only to go through the lines or rehearse the lines, but to pick the text apart and to self-actualize it as if we were the two people in love. So when I was doing the scene with Romeo and Juliet, Rose by any other names, just so sweet, and the balcony scene when in drop out I tree and all them sort of something there, we spoke about our own experiences that could have been brought to bear on the role, and he gave space for that by asking Socratic means of questioning, you know, how did you arrive at that? Dennis never said play it this way, never. He said see how you feel, and you might play it one and say how you feel about that, and I think he says is there another way you could play it? All right, and go on, and you see what I mean. And so that was the kind of director he was, and he was arduous, a stickler for walking with a clip pad and making notes, not only of the productions and calling you during lesson time or sending you a note to say, please remember this or think about that from the notes. I mean, sometimes in the sessions he'd tell us the notes afterwards if there was time, you know, but that was the kind of director. He'd personalize each character in the play and then give them notes or tell them in a general forum what the expressions were. He told me when we were in Nassau, he wasn't a director. He said, remember that, because I'd said something to him, and he said, I only give direction. I help to give direction. And that's why I realized I got to get out of acting, because some directors are too hard on the actor. They're not actors themselves. Hello, Mr. Direction.
Alright, so I think a lot of my understanding of you is of a layered approach to life, and perhaps that life is layered. And we see that in your use of different genres to communicate and to express yourself. If we move to another genre of art, about your painting, what can you tell us about that and your sojourn into that aspect? Which is not performance in the strict sense, but it is a kind of performance.
Yes. It started with colors of nature. I was fascinated by the greenery, you know, the beauty of the yellows and the pinks, for example, in the bougainvillea, and the white. Yes, and we used to, as children, pick some of these colors and beat them up in a sardine pan to get out the color to form ink to write. But in them days it was slate. Yeah, but we was creating our own, because we can't find piece of paper somewhere, newspaper, anything, and we'll see how the colors them are fit up. But it was at primary school that I did art in grade 1. Yes, Miss Lewis, cheese and peas, God be with her. And experimenting with crayons and pencil and shadings. By the time I got to grade 4, Jerry came. Then there was another guy, another student called Benji, call him Benji. The name was Winston. And my brother Lenroy. And we got into a group. It was the same acting group, but it was the same group that was making a comic.
Oh, wow.
Because we used to draw out a comic book. And so we lend each other comic books as well, different drawings, cartoons, cowboy things, you know, and so on and so forth. And by the time we finished that comic, it was about a man, a scooter man, but he was like a mysterious man. But if you see how the school to draw, and we had the entire comic, the principal of the school was, I don't even know where that is now. I asked Jerry the other day, he said, I don't know. Wait, you know. But that was where the art, and even Jerry, my good friend, was quite fascinated with the fact that he found it encouraging that I'm still in art. And him should get on with it because we had such a beginning. And then I went to Calabar and I did a bit. Most of my drawings at Calabar were shoes, all different types of shoes, and variations of the Lignum vitae tree. Yeah. And those were in pencil mostly. And then I got to the school of Endemande College, and then art as not an option, but elective. We had to do it for years. So I did art, music, dance, but centerpiece was drama. In fact, I'm going to see a dear friend of mine on Saturday, Hope Wheeler. She was the director of studies at art school at one time. She's a fascinating Jamaican artist, but she kept quiet. She was at JBC when I was there as well. So experiencing that, I did my own private collection. And I did my scribblings when I was reading the news. What do you call those scribblings on the paper? I forget now. In between breaks, and I've kept all of those. And I saw how a space, a stage could help bring about colors, shapes, shades, perspectives, depending on how I felt at the time. And then once I put all the pieces of work together, then I begin to see what I need to develop further, but I don't throw them away. Yeah.
So if we talk about poetry again,
yes.
How does that engagement with visual art inform, if it informs, how you look at a poem and crafting a poem?
Yes.
Is there a direct correlation?
Yes. We're talking about poem chapter 2. Yes, there is. There is something about how we learn through vision, through hearing. Well, they call the 5 senses, but of course there's intuition and other things like feelings and so on. So what is translated in the poetry and the art is a theme, perhaps, yes, and they can be looked at in that way, but also I couldn't say it in the writing. But whatever the art form, I came to the conclusion, it speaks to an audience. And whoever reads it or sees it, I've never quite finished writing a poem or doing a piece of art, because it will end in the imagination of the onlooker. You see what I mean? And on balance, it's how it moves one. I mean, writing words, could do that for half an hour, yeah, take a break. By the time I go outside and have a look, I think, cranky, where's my scrapbook? That looks good. Yeah, so it breaks down this sort of factory type production, boom, boom, and allows one to be creative and to think. Yeah. Is
that something that you think you need, like those different ways of...
No, it's these things come to me and I keep asking them why. So I only serve as a messenger for these themes or these colors or these ideas or these words, and just do as I'm told, because a lot of them don't turn out how I would have wanted. I told you, they've got a mind of their own. They've got a character.
Yeah, that takes me to my next question of what are you looking for, if you're looking for anything, when you approach a piece of writing, when either you're writing a song or a poem or a play. Are you looking for anything in particular, or what is that journey like?
And so I asked myself the question, Humroy, are you a seeker or a believer? And I find that my faith in the just as I am, being gifted with the talents long before me did born, because God knew me from even before me was conceived. And I have to be myself because everyone else is taken. And so it comes out in this way because I couldn't be doing anything else, you know what I mean? It's like Bob Marley saying couldn't sing anybody's song, and a lot of the great artists just zeroing upon what them have to do after them go through with little things. So is the word call me? And I answer, present. This is after prayer, you know. I have to start with prayer in the morning and I go through the day. Yes, I cover with self. Triple, yes. So when we who are the people of the earth whose freedom is purchased, as some people freedom not purchased yet, then I have to speak on behalf of the voices from them time working through I to bring that message forward of roots, reflection, renewal and revival, and that is done through storytelling, a tradition that lives on. Fancy storytelling, you know. We are hear story of times and people and places long gone and we named it did it. But the stories always have a moral. They have a meaning in them, and those meanings are timeless, and that's why storytelling is so important for the future. But my work is to encourage others to tell your story in whatever form you choose, and I'd love to hear it. You see, when we go out downtown, go Coronation Market, I meet a lady, say, "Morning, Mr. Man." I say, "How do you do? Greetings." She said, "Come here. I go tell you what happened to me yesterday." "Yeah, buy banana?" I said, "No, beside jackfruit." "Yesterday, me come down here." And that story is so fascinating. As opposed to I go to the bank and something, "Excuse me, Mr. White, I'll be there in a minute." Yes, and you wait a little bit and they come, "Oh, I've just gone on because my manager had gone." And all these stories combine to reflect something in our lives that we can attune to because a human being we name. Is it? Alright then. What's your story? And what will you discover to share with the rest of the world? Your story, my story, we're all deserving of that wider audience. Is it?
Alright, I'm going to ask you about the collection that you released, Journey to Discover.
Yes.
So you talked about discovery, you often talk about journeys, and certainly your life, your creative life has been a journey for you.
Yes.
And you bring together multiple genres of art in this book. So tell us a bit about both that title and what you are doing in that collection.
It's a continuum. Hence I didn't say Journey to Discovery. Because I think I discovered something, I realized, hang on a minute. It's like a brethren tell me that he wanted to know why the peony wally glow, and he was so curious, and he decided to experiment on one. But each time he broke down each component, there are a million more. You see what I mean? And I just put it that it's a continuous journey, and because the whole creation story, I'm a child of the universe, and creativity is part of that expression. According to scripture, even the first day when God saw Miriam, and then when he spoke, the sounds, the colors, the shades, you know, and in the Imago Dei, we are left to express that in whatever form we see, you know, because no man had seen God at any time. So this book, Journey to Discover, is really about taking me on a journey, and the most enduring one of all is of my meandering relationship as a man with my fellow men, and also a meandering relationship with myself, nature, and God. So throughout the piece, Journey to Discover, the musician is heard in the melodies and rhythms of the poems and in the plays, and the journey continues to resonate and linger long in the troubles and pleasures of Jamaica, my real home, my true home, you know, and it echoes beyond the final page, as Yashika Graham from the Jamaica Poetry Society in her blurb said. Humroy Whyte's Journey to Discover is all at once a collection of field notes. It's kind of harvesting imagery. The poet hunting and gathering in the wild, and the poet calling attention to the many voices he encounters there. Wrapped up in sound, one hears in this collection the music of drums, guitars, of the theatre, of the natural world, live on stage. Thank you, Yashika. I will endure with those words in my heart and continue to encourage and inspire others to tell their story as they continue on their journey to discover.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wondered if I can trouble you to read something for me.
And another thing. You've read the book, and I look forward to your review of it at some point. You know my works very well. I don't know if you have any favorite, but the two I just like to, and they sort of follow in each pathway as they come in the book. Journey to Discover and The Poet. Journey to discover in search of near silence at the root of the tongue, native seed bleeding on pages of skin and bone, on a journey to discover. Poet. The head is full of constant sounds, like shadow cutting patterns in the sun. Like grass on the wind, you will hear music. When the tongue cracks like seed in earth, dream splinters. Each fossil an endless echo, 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 echo. Yes, I'll leave you those two. And the piece of artwork is Echo Chamber, again, you know. And the beauty about the one-man shows is that with the music and the poetry combined, I can take a break from reading and play something in between, and then go again. Yeah.
Kind of ebb and flow.
Yes, yes. And also what I tend to do these days is to set up one of my easels with a canvas, and in between the poetry and the music, I'm also painting something in conversation. Yeah. The last one, I danced. Did you see it? Then clap lakawa. And so all the four ideals are still. I don't know if you have any more questions.
No, I think we're good. Thank you so much.
Yes, we're good to go. And thank you. The pleasure is mine. It's been a lovely, lovely day and a lovely interview. Look, the sun's coming out.
Yeah.
Shall we go into the garden?
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I feel a poem and a song calling me. Those wonderful Jamaican palm trees with the wind blowing through.
All right.
All right, thank you. God bless.
Thank you. And that's what we have for this edition of the Ackee Pod, episode 5, featuring Humroy Whyte. We do want to thank you for tuning in, and we do want to invite you to leave a comment in the comment section and let us know what genre of writing inspires you, or what in particular stood out to you about our conversation with Humroy Whyte. We know that life is made of these various layers, and that even as writers, to say that we are only fed by writing or only fed by formal art would be a kind of limiting concept. There are those of us who are fed by dancing. You have to go out and dance, and you have to hold a vibe. So some of us love to run out in the rain or go cycling. Any of these various things can inform us and help us to see the world differently, see the world more clearly, and may give us other perspectives that prove useful to our writing or our art, whatever that ends up being. So let us know what genre of art, if you are an artist, if you are a writer, let us know what genre of art you produce and what informs you, like what feeds you as a person in the world, as an artist in the world, and leave that in the comment section. We invite you to join us again next Monday for episode 6, and we soon let you know who we're going to have next week. But in the meantime, tune into our other episodes by visiting the channel Wild Current Studios on YouTube, and of course following us on Instagram at Wild Current Studios. I'm Yashika Graham for the Ackee Pod Interviews with Writers. Catch you next time.